And then on to the big thing.
We can get on to the big thing. So Terrifier has taken over my house. My girlfriend is enamored with Art the Clown. Last weekend, I had to go to Spirit Halloween, where she could not find she found one item from that movie. It's like a knife with his face on it. She bought that just because it was an item with this fucking clown on it. Yeah. And I ended up just going on, like, because I felt bad. I went online. I bought her. We have it now. I bought her a blanket with him on it and a little plushie of him that I don't think it looks great, but I don't know. She's happy
about it. That's all that matters.
I don't think it looks great considering the character, but it's kind of hard to make a plushie of a character whose whole thing is making facial expressions. So, but she's been bothering me all month about, like, she obviously learned of it through the memes and was like, what is this? Yeah. I want to watch this movie. And I told her, I'm like, I don't think you're going to understand what this is. Like, I don't think you know what this is going to be. It's not what you think it's going to be, kind of a thing. Not knowing that she would actually, come to love that. I mean, she also, I should preface, she's a vet tech, so she sees that kind of stuff all the time. So gore isn't something that's really going to bother her. But she kept bothering me and bothering me about, like, I really want you to watch the first one. I just want you to watch this first Terrifier to see what it's all about. And if you don't like any of the other, if you don't like the movie, I won't make you watch the other ones. And keep in mind, she's only seen the first Terrifier. She hasn't seen, she has not seen Terrifier 2. Obviously, she has not seen Terrifier 3 yet. She's only seen the first one. So our agreement on the Terrifier thing was, I'll sit down, I'll watch the first one with you. I'm not agreeing to watch the other ones. I'll watch the first one to see what this is about. And my big thing was, like, I know everything about it. I know every single gory detail about each of these movies. I know about the hacksaw thing going in. I wasn't sure what to expect because of that. I didn't hate it, but I don't love it either. Like, that's the thing. Like, I can't say I had a bad time watching it, because I think there are some good elements to, at least, and I'm only going to talk about the first one because it's the only one I've seen.
Yeah.
I like how it was filmed. I like that it's a throwback to 80s slashers. I think the character of Art the Clown is fantastic, and the guy playing him is fantastic. But I feel like, and again, this is without seeing the other two, so I don't know what's evolved as far as the story that's being weaved through these movies. But, like, just from watching the first one, I feel like he's a character that deserves a better movie than what he's being given. That being said, like, the gore, like, I didn't know what to expect. And the first scene where he kills these people in a pizzeria, the minute he slapped his axe down on this dude's fingers and his hand exploded, I laughed because it was comical. Like, I didn't know what to expect. And I equate that to the 2018 Halloween where Michael Myers steps on that dude's head and it explodes, where I literally laughed in the theater because I was like, this is the most fucking insane thing. And it's that level, I guess. And like I said, I haven't seen the other two, but, like, it's that level. With all that being said, I shut my eyes during the hacksaw scene just because that is the point where I think it's going a little too far. Where I'm just like, you're starting to get in. My girlfriend and I actually had a conversation about this before watching it, because she kept asking me, like, I don't understand why you're so hesitant to watch this. You love all these horror things. I explained to her, I'm like, because when it goes from, like, slasher to the torture porn level, which I equate to, like, Hostel, or there's one other one I always like to throw in that category. Hostel would be the big one. Like, I hated that movie. Because there was no joy. There's no joy. You lose the joy of the fun of the slasher, and especially the movie Hostel, where it's like you can't root for the bad guy. They're rich assholes that are literally paying to kill people for fun.
Yeah,
there's no pleasure in that movie. Like, it's all trash.
I can understand that. Yeah.
So whereas here, like, it's still a slasher character, but I just feel like, and it's not like, I'm not like one of those people like, oh, the gore is too much, like, I can't handle it, I'm gonna pass. I'm not one of those pass out people. Whereas, like, if I go and have my blood drawn, I can't look at it. That's a little bit different. I will pass out there. But watching this, like, no. And obviously after the hacksaw scene's done, you see that body a couple times. It's comical. But I didn't hate it. Like, there's certain parts about it. Like, I knew about the other scene that I'll bring up. Like, I knew about the whole there's one woman where like he skins her a little bit and wears like her chest and her scalp, and you read that and you go like, that sounds really fucked up, and then you see it and it's just laughable because it's like, what am I? It's one of those like, there were a couple times I watched a movie, I'm like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yep.
Like the whole scene where the main character lady is running through that warehouse, and then she runs into this woman who has like a little like doll that she's pretending to be a real child.
Yeah,
was my first moment. Like, what the fuck am I watching right now? Like, what is this movie? Like, what is going on? But I didn't hate it, but I'm like, I don't feel any desire to watch the other two. I'm just like, it's fine. I get it. I like these memes. I think the dude's fantastic. That dude's been out there saying he wants to play the new Joker. Let him do it. Let him do it. I think he'd be good. But I am not going to go further with the series. I'm just going to live through the memes and laugh at this stupid blanket I have in my house now. So with all of that being said, you have watched Terrifier 3. You've now seen all 3 Terrifier movies.
I have seen all 3 of them.
Has your opinion changed on the franchise after seeing the latest entry?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you this, and I had to sit down and think about this.
And you can spoil it. I don't care.
So I will say the benefit of Terrifier 3 is it picks up after Terrifier 2. And the reason I'll say that is because Terrifier 3 at least has some story.
Okay.
The ending of Terrifier 2 makes the story of Terrifier 3. Okay. So I wasn't necessarily completely mad at this movie because the first 2 movies I was pissed because there was no story. It was just Art walking around killing people. And I will go on to say that the guy who plays Art,
he's fantastic.
He does so well. And he doesn't talk, and he just makes facial expressions. And that's pretty crazy for me to compliment the character of a movie and hate the movie. Because the first 2 were just bad. And the gore, like gore doesn't necessarily bother me. Like I don't mind it. Because
does it look any more realistic in the newer ones than the original? Okay.
No, not at all. And I will say, so the gore level is still the same in this one. I know people were saying like there was this big campaign online where people were walking out of it because the first scene is just so gory they just couldn't take it.
Yeah, I feel like they did that with the last one though. Like,
they did it with all of these, I feel like, because they know that's just what they're doing, and they're just taking people's, their shock. It essentially is just shock value gore. So in the opening of this, Art the Clown is in a Santa outfit, and this family, it's a young girl, older male, older boy, mom and a dad.
Okay.
Well, the younger girl, she's like talking to her mom. Her mom's like, of course, if you don't go to bed, Santa's not going to come.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So she goes to bed. She hears something downstairs. She walks downstairs. Art the Clown's downstairs. So she sees him, and he turns around. She knows he's not Santa, so she kind of like timidly moves back into hiding. Art essentially kills her whole family. Okay. Which is fine. Doesn't bother me. He axes everybody to death, and it's just over the top gore. Like, it's not even like it's done cleverly. It's just like...
Is that the scene that has the rats?
No.
Okay. That's later.
The rat scene is like one of the last scenes in the movie.
Okay.
So I will say there is one scene in this movie that kind of made me raise my eyebrows. And it wasn't like in a bad way. Okay. It was more like that felt unnecessary.
Okay.
And I will say, so since you haven't watched the second one, and I can't remember what happened to her, but there's a girl from the second one that I want to say like she gets like something's done with her face, like her face is
okay. So it's the girl from the first one. So it's the girl that survived.
Yes.
And got her face got fucked up by Art at the end because he was literally eating her face.
That's what it was.
But it's like her. You don't really see it.
Right. So
her face is all fucked up. And she was not really in the second movie, from my understanding.
She wasn't.
She's in the third movie. So my understanding is like he gets decapitated in the second one or something. Something happens to him, and then this character births his head or something.
So at the end of the second one, the main character essentially chops his head off with the use of a sword, like a magical sword.
Okay.
And so you know, of course, that's what happens. So in the third one, you get that opening scene where Art kills that entire family, and then it goes into the movie, which doesn't entirely make sense.
I mean, it makes sense to the point of they just wanted to have that opening to shock value.
So in this one, a cop is called to the scene. He goes down and he sees Art's body. So he's like, you know, kind of like looking around to see what's up, turns around, the body's gone. That's how this one starts off. Art essentially kills him. Art's headless, but he still kills this guy. And then essentially takes the cop's head and puts it on his body.
Okay.
And so he's literally walking around with this cop's head on his body.
Awesome.
So Art ends up going to the psychiatric ward where that girl from the first movie is.
Yeah. Okay.
She in this movie, the way and this is why I say this one's not as bad. In this movie, they explain why Art kind of like has an attachment to this lady.
Okay.
Essentially, she is like a vessel for a demon.
Okay.
And Art, I'm not going to say Art is the demon because the demon kind of inhabits her body. But Art is like essentially like, I feel like Art is like her security.
Well, let me ask, because Art doesn't speak, how is it explained? Because he's a character that doesn't talk. So
the girl from the second movie is the main character in this one.
Mm.
She essentially explains it when she's talking to her younger brother, because since her and him lived through the second one, they both like, she's gone to a psychiatric ward where she's like on medicine. Her brother's trying to forget everything that ever happened.
Yeah.
And so she's like, you know, she's like getting hallucinations for where she sees, or she thinks she sees Art or like her friends and stuff like that. And they essentially explain it in their first interaction with each other. So it's interesting. Like I said, that's why I say this one wasn't as bad. There was a story, there's a plot, there's an idea.
They're starting to flesh things out a little bit.
And they execute it really well in this one.
Okay.
The gore I think for me, that's what it is. It's just the gore, and it's not good gore. And so that's what throws me off. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just really stupid in some of the kills. Yeah. But some of the kills are pretty intense, I will tell you that. The one part where I'm talking about, which seemed unnecessary, was at one point, because of Art doing the killing, the girl is essentially pleasuring herself.
Oh, is it the glass thing?
With a piece of glass.
Yeah, I read something about that, and that seems unnecessary.
It was. Yeah. I got why it went over. Like, I understood I get why they did it, but then part of me was just like, why? Like, it wasn't necessarily. I think it's just for
the shock value, because is that in the opening scene, right?
No, that's in like the.
Oh, it's later. Okay,
that's like 65% into the movie.
Okay, I think like they just do that for shock value.
And I agree. That's the only reason, because it really didn't make even Art, like after he ends up killing the guy and he looks at her and he sees what she's doing, he goes. and part of me was like, I agree with you. Fuck, that was a little weird.
Yeah.
But I'll die on a hill by saying the guy who plays Art the Clown does a fantastic job. The third movie out of all three was probably the better movie.
Okay.
Just because there's a story, and I followed the story well. The kills made sense.
Okay.
The kills were over the top, of course, but I guess when you're coming from like 80s slashers where literally they don't get too intense. Like I remember growing up, the most intense killing I remember seeing was what, Friday the Nightmare on Elm Street 3, I think it was, in the insane asylum.
Okay.
When Freddy pulls that girl's veins out of her fucking hand.
Yeah,
and
no,
like
I just watched all those, and like that was the thing I thought about when he's using them as like a puppet and controlling. Like it's fucked up. Yeah,
that was probably as a kid. That's the kill that stood out the most in all of those movies I've ever seen. But like when I watch something like the Terrifier, nothing on any of these kills stands out. It's just like,
it's just
how can we decimate this body to the point where people are like, like what can I do to make someone just turn their head? That's essentially what they're doing in every kill. I will say the rat scene you're talking about was pretty wild.
Okay.
But not really horrible. Like
more laughable.
Bad. More laughable. It's so much of the killing was just kind of stupid and unnecessary.
So explain to me, because I mean, at this point we've spoiled the movie, and I don't.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
And like, I'll put a spoiler tag on it. But how, like, from what I've read, like how fucking crazy is the end of the movie? Because from what I understand, like somehow a portal to hell opens up and he gets sucked into it. Like,
so let me explain to you what happens.
Okay.
So the girl, her name is Sienna. She gets picked up to live with her aunt, her uncle, and her cousin.
Okay.
The little girl. And so throughout this whole movie, she's with them and she's, going through things. Well, at one point, Sienna starts to lose her shit because Art ends up killing in the mall where she was, and she blatantly sees a vision of she swears she sees him, but nobody else saw him. So she, people are assuming, well, she's just off her meds. Like she needs to take her meds and lay down.
Didn't he like blow up part of the mall or something?
Yeah, he blew up the mall. Essentially, he blew up the line where kids were waiting for Santa.
Okay,
it was pretty crazy. But that was probably the most contained kill in the entire movie.
Okay.
Which is wild to think that a bombing was the most contained kill in a movie.
Yeah.
But what happens is Sienna starts to freak out. She's telling her uncle, you need to go get my brother. We all need to be in the same area. Blah, 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 blah. So her uncle goes to pick him up. And then Art essentially kills her uncle and her brother, Sienna's brother.
Okay.
Art then ends up going to her house and knocking her out, tying her to a chair. He ties her aunt to a chair where they're kind of sitting together.
Yeah.
And that's where the scene kind of picks up. The rat scene happens to her aunt where Art essentially shoves a pipe down her mouth and throws rats in there and they essentially eat her. What happens after that is the little girl, Gabby, her cousin, found the magical sword that Sienna found and brought back home right from the second movie. So she ends up helping Sienna get that while Art and the girl, the deranged girl, are like, where she's like explaining to Sienna what she's going to do and the fact that she's, going to take over Sienna's body and blah, blah, blah. It goes from like her to now a possession type movie.
Okay.
And so Sienna ends up getting the sword. She ends up killing the girl.
The disfigured girl.
The disfigured girl. So while the disfigured girl is essentially the demon, as her body is like bleeding out and like degrading, it's essentially like leaking into the ground.
Okay.
And so that's how the portal opens up.
Okay.
So the girl...
Does it look cool or does it just look like everything else that we were like, eh?
It looks like a portal. Like,
Okay.
there's really nothing crazy about it. Like, once it opens up, you see like the red light pop out, and there's like screaming coming from it. And so essentially what happens is the girl Gabby falls into the portal.
Okay.
And so Sienna tries to rescue her, and which is really weird. It takes this really weird turn because then so Sienna tries to save Gabby, but all she has to try to grab Gabby is the sword. So Sienna grabs the blade of the sword and hands Gabby the handle part to try and yank her up. But of course, no offense, you're holding a blade, so there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
And essentially, the blade just falls through Sienna's hand, slices her hand open, and Gabby falls through this portal. Once Gabby is in the portal, Art the clown is like stabbed onto the wall with the sword at one point. And so he's stuck on the wall. She thinks he's still on the wall because she's focused on trying to grab Gabby.
Yeah.
Gabby falls through the portal. The sword goes through the portal with Gabby. The portal closes.
Okay.
She turns around. Art the clown is gone out the window.
Okay.
And she looks at her hands, and her hands essentially heal.
Okay.
So, like, Sienna is now a superhero at some point in this movie.
So she has some sort of supernatural ability, basically.
And the disfigured girl even says that because at one point she grabs her by the throat and she's trying to take her over, and Sienna is like powerful enough to stop it. And so she goes, and one of the parts of the dialogue is she's like, "I see why they chose you because you really are strong." And so you kind of like get the idea that Sienna is actually like really powerful, but you don't know to what extent. So that's what happens in that portal scene.
And that's interesting though. Like that it actually has something going on.
And that's why I'm saying, like, I will say this: Terrifier 3 out of the first two is the better movie out of the two. I feel like you could literally probably watch the last 15 minutes of Terrifier 2 and then jump into Terrifier 3 and feel like you know what happened in the franchise.
Okay.
Because essentially that's the best part. And then Art the Clown, after that whole scene happens, Sienna's like, "I'm going to find you, Gabby, don't worry." So, essentially now Sienna's going to look for Gabby, and essentially I think what she's going to have to do is track down Art to get to Gabby.
Yeah.
So Terrifier 4 is coming. I don't know what's going to happen.
This movie, I think I checked today. It's up to 60 million. It's made.
I'm stuck in this fucking franchise, and I'm gonna have to watch the fourth one just to see if it's as good as the third one.
You're in the American Horror Story situation I was in, man. Like every season, you're like, I'm done. I'm not gonna do it, and then they come out and you're like, here's this new premise where you're like, that actually sounds pretty cool. Maybe this will be the one. No.
And listen, I did the same thing with that Winnie the Pooh movie. I watched the first one and I was like, that movie was fucking trash. And then I watched the second one and I was like, that was a pretty fucking solid movie. Yeah. I will say that, so the ending of Terrifier 3, Art the Clown gets on a bus. And that's just it. Like, he's on the bus, he honks the horn, the movie ends. So I don't know what's going to happen in the fourth movie.
What about,
I will say,
what about the chainsaw kill? Is that like, was that the one that people like? Obviously, they did what they did at the beginning of the movie, and they'll do this. They're going to do the same thing for the next one, right? Like the next one, they'll do some over the top thing for the beginning to get that same, like, people are walking out.
The same effect. So the chainsaw kill wasn't too bad. Essentially, what happens is, it's a college girl and boy. So the boy is actually the roommate of Jonathan, Sienna's brother.
Okay.
And he is actually dating, which is crazy. He's dating a girl who runs a murder podcast and knows who Sienna and Jonathan are because she's followed the story and she's trying to get Jonathan to be on the podcast.
Interesting.
So they end up having sex in like the shower. Art finds them, and essentially,
that seems like a typical slasher, though.
Typical slasher. Yeah. Why not be in the bathroom? Yeah. But Art essentially finds them. He crashes open the glass door, chainsaws part of him, like his hand, his like his leg, and then the dude kind of falls out of the shower and starts trying to crawl away, and then the girl. So Art doesn't use the chainsaw on her in the way that you would think he uses on her. He's literally hitting her with the blade of the chainsaw, like
just like slapping her with it. Yeah, that's
and so when she's essentially dying, half of her face is missing.
Okay,
and then he turns to the guy and essentially chainsaws from the guy's asshole up.
Okay. So kind of reverse of what happened in the first movie, except he's using a chainsaw.
Yeah. Okay. So all in all, I mean, it was a cool looking kill, and that's the thing about it. Like, even though the gore is kind of over the top, some of the kills they do are actually not bad.
Well, like, I go back to that that movie that came out earlier this year, the one that we kind of say, I was gonna say the one we kind of say is a Friday the 13th ripoff, because like there were a lot of kills in that movie that were kind of like whatever, but there was that one with the spine.
That was my favorite. Like, if I could label
fucking crazy
best kill of the year, that's going to be the best.
And that's the thing is, like, that's the level I was expecting out of Terrifier, because I was like, okay, that was pretty fucked up. And like, no, it's just like this dude's hand exploded. I'm just like, what the fuck?
And see, and that's the difference, because I feel like In a Violent Nature did gore pleasantly.
Yeah,
like it was effective, but it wasn't over the top. You knew it was
coming though, too.
Yeah, like I saw, like, and I told you I said you're gonna watch that movie, and there's gonna be one kill that's gonna stand out. That kill is gonna stand out because it was intense. Like, but it wasn't like bad. It was like the blood wasn't over the top, the intestines weren't over the. It was like one of those things where part of me was like, yeah, I could see that happening. Like, you know what I mean? So, I think. Like I said, none of these kills in the Terrifier movies are memorable. Like, I can't remember one that stands out to me that I was like, oh my god, that was like the coolest kill, because I just feel like they're all kind of like
so over the top. They just bleed into the same thing.
They really do. They bleed into the same, and they're just not that. They stopped being good after the first scene of Terrifier 1. Like, it feels like a lot of unnecessary gore, and I'm not saying that if you like that kind of movie, cool, go watch it.
I mean, a lot of people do, because it's making a lot of money.
I mean, and it's making a good bit of money. That's why I'm like, I'm not necessarily mad that there's a franchise like this.
I'm not against it either. I'm for it. Like, we're at a point where, like, I'm glad it is shaking up Hollywood, because they need to be shook at this point. And they're like, those executives, they're baffled that this $2 million thing has turned into a $60 million movie in just less than a month.
I will say, like I said, as long as they follow the same plan of Terrifier 3 as to where I feel like they can go in Terrifier 4, I think it'll be a solid film. Will I watch it in theaters? No. I still won't pay to watch this movie, because I'm not like huge into it to the point where like I'm like, oh my god, I have to watch this movie. You know,
and that's the thing where I'm weird. Like, and that's what I was trying to explain to my girlfriend last time we watched it. Is like, I'm weird when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, some of the stuff I'm like, I guess you could say I'm a little prudish on, but then other stuff when it comes to those movies, I'm not. Like, we went and saw when we went and saw Evil Dead Rise, whenever that was, like a year ago. I laughed through the entire fucking movie. Like, and I was the fucking weirdo in that sold out theater that was laughing during the entire thing.
But that was a good one. Like,
it's a good movie.
It's a good movie, and they even do gore heavily in that one too. But
that thing at the end was fucked up. Like, the way
it's still not as stupid as how they do Terrifier. That's the thing that kills me. Is like, gore can be done correctly and look great.
Yeah.
I just think the people who are sitting there writing these deaths are like, how can we make somebody's body explode but not explode entirely?
Yeah.
Because like, that's essentially how it is. Like, the most tamed kill in this entire movie is Art shot somebody in the head.
Yeah, and that there's a scene like that in the original movie where it kind of came out of nowhere, where all of a sudden he just uses a gun.
Like, that was like, probably when he did that, I was probably like, damn,
Oh,
like, okay, that
well, and that, like I said, and then when you go back to why I like the character, why I think it's a cool character is like his facial expressions. Like there are
on
parts
par.
in that movie, at least in the first one, where it's like he'll go to do something, like he's firing that gun, it runs out of bullets, and you see him like roll his eyes and get mad about it or get frustrated. Or there's another scene in that movie where someone stabs him in the leg and starts to get away, and he just fucking flicks them off.
Yeah. I mean,
So like, it's great. Like he's great as a character.
The dude's facial expressions are hands down some of the best I've ever seen in a movie, and like he makes it, even though he doesn't talk, like it's good. Like he's really good.
And there's parts I'll even say, like, just watching the first one, like the way that he presents it, there are times in that movie where it can actually come off creepy.
Yeah.
If you look at it from a certain lens, you can look at it and go, like, it's kind of creepy. This dude literally just murdered this person. I sit there smiling, like, exactly. So,
and that's how it is. Like, I will say it. I mean, definitely, if I say if you're really gonna watch it, I mean, yeah.
At this point, it's the third one. If you know what you're getting into,
yeah,
if you like
really do know what you're getting into. I will say, like I said, out of all of them, the one scene with the glass was just the one that made me go, huh? Like, it's only in it for shock value because it really was not needed. But the story in Terrifier 3 was well played out, and it actually has made me go, okay, I'm interested to watch Terrifier 4. So I mean, that's it. That I watched all three of them. The first two were complete and utter garbage. The third one was tolerable, and we'll see how the fourth one
maybe
goes.
You get to the fourth one and we can say it was good.
It was decent.
Not great. Yeah,
I'm gonna say
like not great. It's good.
It's just like, oh man, and I don't know, like people who are just like saying it's the best film, like I have to call you out. You're a liar, because there's so many other better movies than this one.
Even just as your horror, like in general, has just it's been on fire all year.